controversial subjects with the facts can be tense, but we are a sub-science here to make things make sense.
Spunk.
Sperm.
JIZZ. You already said jizz. Damn it. JIZZ. Jizzum.
Yeah, what are other words? Juice?
Cum.
Oh, yeah.
Semen.
Okay, wow.
Sperm.
Well, yeah, I said that.
What are like the gross ones? I mean spunk.
Spunk is the gross one.
Human milk. In
Milk.
Spanish, they
Leche.
say like, give me your leche. Give me your milk. Imagine in English, give me your milk.
I should try that. Okay, so we're talking about sperm. If you don't know what it is, it's made in the testes, and it's a part of life.
End of
The
podcast.
end. Yeah, where do you want to begin with this? Like, how do we want to talk about this? Obviously, this could be an SFW.
Not safe for work or not safe for family car ride. But I don't know, actually. I don't know. No, I guess I don't want to hear about like the epididymis with like my mom and dad in the car.
No. And I also mean like not safe for our families to
Yeah.
listen to.
Oh, true. Did you know that a testy weighs 25 grams each one? 50 grams in your little scrotum.
Like the ball.
Yeah.
Testicle.
25 grams. I'm like, yeah, okay. That's
I don't really
right.
have like grams as a good
balls.
reference
No,
point.
I'm kidding. Castrated. Continue. Sorry. You almost made it sound like you were going to say you don't have balls.
No. I was just going to say I don't really have a good reference for grams. Like I don't really weigh much in grams, and I'm not like, what, right?
I think next time I go to
Kilograms.
the grocery store, I'm just going to whip out my sack and put it on the little like vegetable weigher thing and just see if
Actually,
we're right.
I do have one of those, and I've weighed like a handful of like, ironically, nuts. Like a handful of nuts is 100 grams, so I'm like 50 is half.
So just plop your balls on them next, and then see if you can get to 50.
Does that work though? Because they're being like suspended, so they're going to
And
be.
there would be
like,
the scrotum sack, which would be adding to the grams.
I'll try it.
You need to have a large sack.
All right, where are we going with this podcast?
Okay,
Like, what can we learn about sperm? Like, I have a
much.
really interesting study, but I don't know if you
No,
want to go
start.
first.
It's so cool. Just start.
Okay. It is basically, about the fact that we have some groundbreaking news about sperm. Something we thought we knew about it for literally 343 years.
Whoa.
Recently, in the last year or two, they realized was completely wrong. So obviously, picture what you think of as a sperm. You have the head of it, you have a tail. We see this image of it whipping its tail back and forth.
I whip my tail back and forth. I whip my tail back and forth. That's your sperm singing.
Yeah, that's where that song came from. And, it's like an eel or a snake or something that goes back and forth. Tadpole propels the sperm forward, and we have these images of it swimming through the water and making it to Earth.
Yeah. It's
not water.
That's a tadpole.
No, sorry. In my mind, I'm picturing how movies show it basically swimming.
It's like the
towards,
fluid. Yeah, the fluid of the vagina.
Yeah, and of the sperm, the semen. Sorry.
Yeah, to the epididymis.
So they're when they looked at sperm in slides, it was the first guy who did this literally took his own sperm, he put it under a microscope, and he saw for the first time these cells that were moving, and that's how they realized there's individualized sperm cells inside of your semen. And so where am I going with this? So 343 years later, we now have 3D microscopy. We're able to look at these sperm cells in ways that we never could before. 3D, not 2D, obviously. What we realized is that they actually do not swim symmetrically at all. In fact, the sperm tail can only move in one direction. Throwback to earlier.
Call back to Niall.
And by that, so it's kind of as though you had one leg swimming or could only kick one leg. You would obviously go in a circle, because if you can only push it one direction, it would not function properly or wouldn't go forward.
Yeah.
So the question became how is it actually working? In these 3D dimensional high-speed cameras, they're able to take 55,000 frames per second create a 3D model of it. And what they realized is that the sperm is, at the same time as it's wiggling the tail in the one direction, it's actually rotating as well, as though it's a drill bit, as though it's an otter swimming through the water, kicking its leg at the same time as spinning. And that mechanism, as a result, combines with the tail going in one direction to balance out by pushing it forward.
Cool. But in 2D, it looked like swimming.
Yeah, because you can't if you're just looking down on a sperm, it looks like the tail is going back and forth. itself
So cool.
is actually pushing one direction, but because it's rotating like a drill, that tail then ends up looking like it's flailing in both or all directions.
So in 2 dimension, looks like a tadpole, but really it's going corkscrew vibes towards.
Yeah, they
egg.
basically said ultimately sperm is not even swimming. It's basically drilling into fluid.
Whoa, okay, don't let men know that. Don't let men know that. Also, sperm, they don't like swim independently. They found that they kind of group up and like help each other out. It's such a like...
It's like ants.
Yeah, or it's just funny that like the like narratives we always get told are so like just ridiculously like masculinized, like the one guy that got ahead and made it to the egg, and it's like no, they actually worked collaboratively as friends, helped each other get there, and then one just happened to hit it. And it's like actually
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they don't
Like
work
collectively they're using each other's
sometimes they like
bodies.
fuse.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Like the motion that they all
Yeah,
create.
like it's just in no way is it just like individual sperm trying to get to the egg. That's like not what is happening.
They're not
at all.
competing in that sense.
No, but of course at one point, because they're a gamete and have 23 chromosomes and only half, and they have to fuse with the egg, at some point one fuses. But it's like, it's not like they're all like, you know, like the idea is that they all have like biceps and they're like punching each other and like being like, I was the fittest man, I made it there. Also, that's like the chemicals from the egg are truly luring them. In no way are these sperm like,
I see. Yeah.
like knowing where to go. Like it's just also just like everything that we've been taught is so gendered. It's just so weird.
Everything
and funny.
that we've been taught, you just learn is wrong as you get older and as we learn more things.
But it's not so much
everything,
wrong.
Not wrong, but I don't know.
That's why I was saying gendered. It feels like that's it's not wrong.
No, I'm speaking more broadly. Like I feel like so many times, like this is a piece of information that I've just shared with you all.
The corkscrew move.
Yeah, you're right. In one sense, it's not wrong. It didn't
not.
ultimately fundamentally change like the existence of life, but it makes us realize we actually did not understand this for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And it just puts into perspective, like there's so many layers to life, and we think so many things are so basic when we look back on the past and we're like, they were so dumb and we know all these things. And you realize there's just so many things that we take for granted that are sort of like basic and easy knowledge that in the future may easily be like, they really believed that light traveled in this way, and now we have like a much more complex, interesting understanding of this that if only they knew, they would never believe.
Yeah, but I still think, and like, I don't know, I'm pretty impressed with what we know about sperm. That's why that was so interesting, because it was the tadpole vibe is what we all picture, and it was different. But like spermatogenesis and all the
we know so much.
We know
I guess I'm not trying to say obviously that we don't know things. I think what's interesting, and we were talking to an amazing physicist the other day, Katie Mack, and she said like she had written the book The End of Everything, which I based my music video on, and she had kind of mentioned how like, you know, physics for a lot of people is really heady and confusing and weird, but like these approximations that we use can be useful. Like this phrase, like can be useful, like stood out in my mind, because you don't need something to be perfect for it to become useful. Like we study all these things and then we realize, oh, we can like create electricity and we can create all these things. That doesn't mean we understand them perfectly. Like there's lots of technology humans use that we actually don't fully understand. And so understanding a sperm moves in a particular way is useful, but maybe when we know even more about it, it becomes useful in another way and we start to understand more deeply. And that phrase like tries, as somebody who's in science, you know, from the outside, I remember once on an interview, we were like, you know, there's no such thing as a fact in science because things are often modified. To some people, I don't want to say that because they don't like believe science, and then that they can use that as like, oh, well, science is often wrong. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is like, so much of things are approximations. We're getting closer and closer to hopefully what is the absolute truth, but maybe we will never reach absolute truth, but we can use mathematics and physics and biology to approximate things to make predictions, and that's really cool. But like ultimately things we're always learning, we're like kind of only understood elements of it previously.
Yeah.
Tangent, side note, sorry.
No, it's true. I'm like trying to be like, do I have anything to add?
I'll ramble a little more because it also felt connected. The other day I was listening to, who would you guess? Alan Watts, and he had like a seminar on the similarities of organized religion, and he's kind of talking about psychiatry and psychology at the time, and how in some ways those act similarly. Like there's belief sets and systems and people who come up in psychiatry and psychology who become like the figures that know everything and everyone subscribes to that belief system.
Brene Brown.
Yeah, or exactly. But then maybe a decade or two later, suddenly we realize, oh, that's like Freud had some interesting ideas.
So Brene Brown is like a minister?
Well, he's kind of making that claim about how we
true.
buy into things. I mean, it's an hour-long lecture. It's really fascinating, and I just thought it was interesting. It's interesting to be in science because you're in a field that you believe so strongly to be like the way to discover the world. But even today, but even certainly hundreds of years ago, people truly believed that like the only way to have salvation was to believe in this thing. Like in their bones, they knew it to be true.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to just be like, we're never going to know. We're only here for a blip.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm rambling. I'm sorry.
No, it's a side note. That's the name of our podcast. It's definitely not about sperm, but I'm like, oh, you even got to the only here for a blip moment. It's like, yeah, damn.
That's sperm, you know? They're certainly only here for a blip unless it's you, and then you're still also only here for a blip longer.
Like, damn, he's getting existential. The only here for a blip moment. I mean, that's true. That's kind of what sperm is. It's creating only here for a blip. Okay, so spermatogenesis.
Okay, so
that's the creation of sperm in your testes.
Yeah.
So in your balls, there's these coiled tubes, which kind of make up the, like, ball. Like, actually, you know, when you like that, like, even just thinking about a ball, it kind of, like, looks like a brain almost. It has, like, lobes, but it's
like
literally
the testicle, you mean?
Yeah, so they're just wound up little tubules, which then have stem cells on, like, the outside of the tubes, and then those stem cells create, like, they essentially go through mitosis to create these germ cells that then go through meiosis to become the sperm. And there's Sertoli cells, which are there to help them, like, give them nutrients. They're like the friends of your sperm. But essentially, it's your testes stem cells that create germ cells. Some stick around to become, like, the germ cells that make more sperm, and some just, like, keep going, go through meiosis, boom, 23 chromosomes, get the head, get the tail. Then they're sent to the epididymis, which is, like, the sacky little thing on the top of the ball that if you've ever touched one,
like you can kind of feel
yeah,
it.
next time you're going down on someone with the penis, you want to, like,
Or if you have one yourself.
But it's more fun this way.
Okay. But it's kind of riskier that way. Like you could hurt someone.
Yeah, they'd be like, why are you squeezing my ball?
No, don't do that.
But maybe don't do that.
That's the thing.
Or
about,
ask
like,
for consent. May I touch your epididymis?
Sure, but yeah. Okay.
Whoa, that'd be cool. Now I'm
put that on a t-shirt.
getting turned on. Okay, so epididymis, it is cool. It's where it, like, stays in there until you come. So the scrotum is the sac, which is really weird because we have our balls outside, which is really weird.
Like lots of mammals have them inside.
We'll just pick, like, obviously there's dogs, which is like, hey, ew, weird, balls outside. I just think, like,
the weirder thing is when you fix them, then their ball sack is like empty there for a while, and then it slowly shrinks and kind of like goes away.
So sad. But, like, think about, like, naked, like, other animals are naked except for dogs in clothes. But, like, imagine
Except for dogs in what?
clothes. Like, it's just so weird when people have dogs with clothes on them. It's like, okay. Weird.
Oh, but they're not like wearing underwear, or they're wearing like little vests.
No, but I mean, I'm just saying, like, animals are naked. Like, imagine birds with balls. Like, or, like, it's just weird that, like,
we are clothed.
Like, if we walk around naked, which is, like, picturing us, it's like, wow, look at that weird ball.
You're right. It is really weird that, like, humans like wear
our dick and balls are really weird. Well, because vaginas are so much more normal. Like, if you look around at, like, an animal, it's like, yeah, it could have a vagina, like any other animal, because it's just, like, around the genitals is not as pronounced as, like, a man naked, or not a man, a person with a penis and balls walking down the street. It's like, what's that hanging?
I'm not sure I know what you're saying, but I'll agree.
Okay,
like I know what you mean,
a
but
bird.
like,
It's like okay,
like apes
feathers,
have their
its
penises
head.
out.
I know, but that's the other anomaly because they're like a mammal so close to us.
So you're saying like so many other creatures don't even have like
No,
their
it's all their
schlong
testicles
out.
are within them.
But are we
Yeah.
talking just testicles? Or are we talking?
I think
also
I'm
the-
talking. Yeah, now I'm talking scrotum. I'm talking just scrotum. A scrotum is weird
Okay.
in general because it's like, yeah, okay. Think about a bird. Imagine a bird with balls. It's like, whoa, there's the balls, or any other thing like a rabbit. Like, it's just weird that we have naked people with balls walking around. It's like that's the
And
weirdest
humans have
part of
big
their
ones,
body.
right?
Yeah.
Relative to other primates,
Don't you
too,
think?
So, yeah.
Like, think about like a bunch of animals in a row, and then you
Yeah.
look at the
It's like a pretty
person with
unique
balls,
feature.
it's like, what is that?
Yeah.
It's like if it's Zelda, that's the thing you got to hit to hurt it and kill it because that seems weak. Apparently, it does hurt because it's supposed. It's
I
like
love how you're trying to like win me over so hard with your point. You're like,
Zelda.
it's just like Zelda, which actually you wouldn't quite know, but it is. There's always like a target.
I
point.
know
Is what you
that.
meant?
That's what I mean. It would be the thing that you have to hit. Like obviously, it's small and it's vulnerable, and apparently, it does hurt so much out of an evolutionary basis to keep them protected.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and they are supposed to be all, for the most part, testes in general are actually supposed to be cooler in order to create sperm, which is why we have ours outside hanging.
To
And
like
why-
temperature regulate.
Yeah, but it's just that other animals with testicles within them, which most animals have, they can regulate the blood vessels around the testes to keep them cooler.
Yeah,
so
it
it's
is
like
kind of
we
odd.
just have them out there.
Girl,
And-
I'm not arguing with evolution here though.
No, I know. What do you mean?
They
Why?
know best.
I know. And if you do dip your balls in cold water, they shrivel up. It's like you can play with this in real time. If you get really warm with a laptop on your lap, they stretch on out. Puppetry of the penis. And yeah, it really is that whole they need to be cooler to create sperm, which I think a lot of people thought was like a myth for a while, but it's not. It's
Yeah, because there
true.
was, I mean, I don't have a study up on this right now, but how the idea of having a laptop on your lap all day is actually like not good for sperm, right?
It's not, and it's one of the reasons why we do see decreased sperm counts in our lives. Also, every average ejaculation is 1 teaspoon. Ugh, that's gross. I
Average?
said that out loud.
Okay.
Yeah, an average ejaculation is a teaspoon.
Okay. I don't want
Yeah.
to make a comment on my
No,
own,
I know,
but
I know. Depends on the day, but depends on the day whether it's a dribble, a drabble, or a whoo.
depends on the hydration, I think.
Wow, I don't know
noticed
that to be
for-
true.
Really? Oh my God, I can always tell if I'm hydrated.
Okay,
That's
wow,
how I
these
sometimes know.
Coming buckets.
No, I just mean like I can, if I'm dehydrated, sometimes that's how I find out.
Wow, that's wild. Either you're jerking off a lot or you're not drinking a lot of water. Yeah, so there is a serious decrease in the amount of sperm and sperm counts amongst people with penises. In the last 40 years, sperm count has decreased by 50%, and taints from the anus to the bottom of the scrotum are shrinking. And this is due to plastics, pesticides, and products, which is really scary. They're endocrine disrupting chemicals. And so they bind as hormones in your body and they mess with your endocrine system. There's a lot of scientists trying to talk about this because it's pretty intense. But phthalates are the main issue, and they are in plastics. They're part of what makes plastics soft. They're in floor coverings, soap, hairspray, deodorant.
They're in soap?
They're in it's like,
Are they in the soap we use?
well, interesting. Okay, so in order for it to impact, a lot of it is based on rat models where the pregnant mothers are exposed to these things. So it's
Okay.
a really big issue.
While they're pregnant. Okay.
Yeah, and they link that to humans. They see the same thing when they're in utero, when kids are young. So when they're in the womb and when they're young is when you're really vulnerable. It's not like this thing that like a 25-year-old just starts like,
I see. Like, yeah. This is like a lifetime
it's
exposure. even
over
before
time,
you-
generations.
Yeah.
This is what's happening.
You're not in your own individual lifetime necessarily like shrinking your taint.
Exactly, but it is why people kind of do look at what is in specific products, and it is worth thinking about. And a lot of people are working towards regulation from the government, obviously, and against these corporations to decrease the amount of phthalates in our lives, because this is obviously scary. Plastic is bad for a variety of reasons, but this is just another one. But it is something you can control if you start to learn more about where these chemicals are from. And yeah, so when I say soap, you can look at why some people, soap is such a consumer choice at this point. It's where a lot of people put their energy in deciding what kind of soap that they use.
Yeah.
So you can look and figure out if there's phthalates in your soap quite easily.
Okay.
You can just, if you're going to some store.
We do a refill depot though. I don't know what's in our soap.
Well, you can
I guess
ask
I could
them.
look up the brand.
The place that we're going is for sure going to be able
Like
to very
phthalate-free.
quickly tell you what they're free of.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying like I'm just filling up a bottle of stuff.
Yeah, like BPA free. That is a big part of this movement. So BPA is another endocrine disrupting chemical. So that's why we saw
This stuff is
BPA-free
overwhelming,
everywhere.
you know? Like, not in and of itself, but you just realize how everything around you and the choices that you aren't necessarily knowing you're making
I know.
can impact you and the human race and your progeny and, like, the generation below.
Because they did, like, men who worked in factories where there was a lot of BPA, even just in the air, so working in, like, plastic factories, they had lower sperm counts. And their sperm swam less well. So it's like...
And as we know... the sperm are struggling to swim in the first place. They're only kicking one
they're
direction.
corkscrewing.
They're corkscrewing.
So the phthalate thing, though, is interesting. And some things that I thought were good to know about is that they're in air fresheners.
Phthalates.
That's an easy one to just eliminate. Like, do not use air freshener. And I'm
Do you mean
that
like the
seems
spray
easy.
kind?
Spray kind, the plug-in. Remember all that, like,
Oh,
90s,
yeah.
like, plug-in?
What about, like, the little scented ones? Are those considered air fresheners?
Yeah.
You know the ones you hang in your car?
Oh, yes.
Those little, like, plasticky
Yes,
things.
the diagram on the study showed a bunch of
That
different
was such an
images.
era, was it?
Yeah.
I feel like that's not as popular anymore. But when I grew up, I feel like so many people, like in my family, my aunts and uncles, like used to hang those on
And
the
it's like,
mirror. and
what?
they did smell nice.
I know, but it's like,
there's
what's
such
going
a-
on in your car that you need that?
and it was such a specific smell. It was almost like the way that banana medication or whatever has like a very distinct
I hate
smell.
it. I hate
But it's like they had their own
I
version
hate
of that.
air freshener. Like, now that I think about it, I hate post someone taking an absolute dump and then doing air freshener and you're like, now it smells like shit, but also like strawberries
almost
and
worse.
rain.
Yeah.
It's like, this is
'Cause
like
it
someone
tricks you to
shit
be
in
like-
the rain, or someone shit on
With
like an organic
flowers.
farm in someone shit in flowers. It's like, that's worse than someone shitting on the ground.
And it's easier
fucks
to
with
just
your brain.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I
anyways,
think it's gross.
don't use air fresheners is one thing, especially if you have like a newborn kid. It's why there's a lot of push towards not like, having specific plastic toys for your kids and things like that. But another one that is a huge issue is that fast food packaging has stain and grease repellents within the actual packages. Like, if you picture like a McDonald's like
wrapped up
burger pack, and when you open it, that inside coating that has a lot of BPA
and rubbing off onto your food.
Yes. So it's kind of funny how it's almost like the laws of nature are like, it's always comes down to these things that are unhealthy for you for other reasons.
Right.
One of the
I
biggest
see,
issues
yeah.
is fast food packaging.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. So it's like, okay.
Because it's getting wrapped up in a plastic that's like transferring
it's
these
the
chemicals.
inner parts of the quote unquote cardboard packaging of like the burger
What
and
about like
fries.
coffee cups? They have like a wax coating on them,
Yeah.
don't they? Or like
well, they said it's specific to fast food because apparently this is for grease.
Okay,
That
I see.
wax
It's-
is probably better than what this is. It's called grease repellent, and it's like within
Interesting.
the. It's to try and allow the bag not to become so disgusting when you
Okay.
have it.
Scary.
Yeah, and nonstick coatings.
But you're right. Like in a way, it makes you turn and go like, okay, well, if you are eating and just buying like more whole foods kind of thing, at least you're avoiding
Yeah, it's
that
like a
without
funny like. There's
necessarily
another
realizing
reason
it.
fast food. It's like if you want another reason to not eat fast food, it's
Right.
that it can affect the size of your literal taint and your sperm count, which is just like, it seems crazy. There are so many scientists trying to get the word out because it almost seems too like overblown, but it is. There's enough hard science for it to be real. And deodorants, hairspray, and hair gels are other places you need to look. Axe body spray.
Well, I don't use that. Don't look at me like that.
No, I'm just saying it was one of the examples.
I
of
used
like,
to. Okay, I
No,
used to
I
use
know.
Axe body spray. Okay, what's a boy to do when he's 13 and doesn't know better?
I know. I was so jealous. I wanted Axe
And
body
to
spray
be
so bad.
clear, there was only one scent that I liked in the first place, Kilo, and they stopped selling it in Canada. So I do not use that.
I thought it was
anymore.
Kylo as in Kylo Ren.
No,
but-
it's Kilo.
So these things are all decreasing sperm counts, and it could be a huge fertility issue, but they are working on trying to get them out of plastics. But in general, it's like, yeah, keep your kid away from copious amounts of plastic, which was probably very hard.
I came across like another angle of not related to plastics, but are there any solutions to the potential fertility issues we're seeing? And I know we've talked about on this pod, it is important to talk about male fertility because often it's like blamed on women.
Yes,
like fertility
yes.
issues. But a big part of it is like sperm health and how age impacts that. Not just age, like as we're saying, like health in different ways.
1/3 of all fertility issues are due to sperm.
Yeah, exactly.
So like that's 1/3 of all the couples out there struggling. It's
Yeah.
important to know it could be the sperm. A lot of people put so
could
much
be
on
both,
the
could be
women.
one, could be it's like
Yeah.
important to
It's
just
really
like
sad,
have
actually.
that know that we can't just be like blaming like one
People
individual.
with vaginas.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
But a new study, what am I trying to read my notes here? Looked into occupational factors and the impact of your job on your sperm. And what they found is that men who regularly lift heavy objects, or I should say like people with testes, at work have higher sperm counts than those who have less physically demanding jobs. Which is interesting because there has been research before that like exercise increases the amount of healthy sperm.
Yeah.
And so maybe this is like an expansion of that. Obviously,
Makes
for
sense.
people like us sitting at home all day on computers.
I lift my pen.
Yeah, and in this case, it was about lifting, like not just being on your feet. Of course, like movement is so important to health, but in this case, they were like, if you're lifting heavier things at your job, you're going to have healthier sperm.
Interesting.
And so just like remembering that physical activity is certainly not the only problem. Like I think plastic is such a problem, but
chemicals in plastic.
Yeah, sorry. But there's more to it, and some of it maybe you can take into your own hands, which is at least can feel like, okay, just like do your best to limit your exposure to things, try and be physically active, and that will hopefully minimize your risk at these things.
That's like, yeah, that's true. It is important to remember that. Like the laptop thing is also part of just the temperature of your balls not being where they are to make sperm, which can decrease sperm count, which is an issue now because we all have our laptops on our lap. And even biking.
Exactly. Just from the exposure to like the pressure rate on your taint.
And it is just like testosterone is so interesting because it's created in the testes. It is a hormone that like does affect your body. And so these endocrine disrupting chemicals are impacting your endocrine system through hormones that either mimic estrogen or mimic testosterone. But it is interesting because it's like physical activity. I wonder, it obviously has an impact on your endocrine system as well. That's like what you're doing when you're working out. You're putting your body through stress.
Yeah, and it's responding by like changing the hormone levels in your body.
And it is like it quote unquote. You
can do it. You can do it.
I pass out.
Cross-eyed.
Pass out. And we're done.
Quote.
The masculinization.
No, you got to do it again. You got to.
Okay, the quote unquote masculinization of a person is controlled by testosterone. And I was just reading about how this is insane, but because women weren't allowed in choirs like back in like the 1600s or whatever, it's all, related to the like Catholic Church and how messed up it is. But they were like, oh, we can't have women in a choir. Like one woman sang in a choir and they were all like blasphemy or whatever. And it's like, they still like can they still not have women in choirs?
No, you can now, but yeah.
But like, can you? Like whenever I see a Catholic like choir, it's literally little boys. Okay.
Yes, you can have women. But there was like similarly how you couldn't be a female minister for a long time. And in some churches you still can't.
If you're a Catholic church.
I actually don't know right now. Like you're probably right. I'm just saying I don't actually know the answer to that.
Anyways, evil corp, the Catholic Church, but they would castrate
men,
boys,
like make them eunuch.
Yeah, so they could sing higher, so they didn't have to bring in girls to be soprano
because they would not go through puberty then, right?
Yeah, so in order to deal with the fact that women weren't allowed in choirs and they wanted sopranos, they would like castrate the prepubescent boys, and that's when they first started to realize that there's something in the balls that controls the vocal cords and the masculinization of these people. So it's like, in a roundabout way, they were doing disturbing science by trying to keep a soprano in a choir of a Catholic church without allowing women in it.
I really want to, like, I don't know enough about this. I want to, suddenly I have the urge to do like research on eunuchs.
Yeah. So they also...
And like, is it for just that reason, or why else were they?
There were other eunuch culture happening in parts of China because people within the royal families wanted to keep the quote unquote breeding and like bloodline of the royals within a certain sect of people. So instead of allowing men to work within the royal confines who could be like potential viable outsiders who would get their sperm in, they would
Like if you're working around the royal
you would
family,
have your balls cut off.
So they could guarantee you wouldn't like have sex with somebody.
Yes, and so through that they also started to be like, wait, they're not they're not growing facial hair. They're
Right.
not
Their physical features are different. Or...
and a lot of people who were poorer would be willing to get their balls cut off for it because then they'd now have a bunch of money from the royals getting paid.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it was crazy. They would cut off their dick and balls.
Oh, whoa.
And then they would, after they cut off their dick and balls, take the bandage off 3 days later. And if this urine came out, they was like, okay, you're good. And if the urine never came out because it scabbed over, they'd be like, okay, sorry, you're going to die.
What?
And they would just die.
If the urine came out?
Like, because they're
if they could pee or not?
Yeah, I actually feel like I'm going to pee.
I don't want to talk
and
about
like,
that.
yeah, no, it's so disturbing. I was reading, I love how you're like, I want to do research about eunuchs. I'm like, I already did. It was fascinating. But this is, again, these anecdotes from ancient text is what started the science of testosterone and all this stuff.
There's got to be a movie on this. Like I want to watch a documentary. There's
Oh yeah,
probably a
I'm like, I don't know
video.
if there's like a Hollywood movie.
No,
about
I
the
just
balls
am
cutting
so
off.
curious about that
Yeah.
culture, if that's what you would call it. I'm sure there's like so many layers to that history that now I'm just like, oh, I need to go look that up.
Yeah, I don't, and obviously it doesn't, it's just like, but it is interesting that the testes create this important hormone, and women go through menopause, but men actually have a slow decrease in testosterone as they age. So it's like we do go through our own version of menopause. It's just not like a instant thing. But we're going to be talking more about testosterone. That's for sure.
Another time.
Because I'm doing a video about how so many people are taking testosterone supplements. It's a big industry.
Well, that's a little tease for a future episode.
Yeah.
As you've been dropping for a while now, but once that episode.
Like the balls dropping.
Okay. Well, that was some fun talk about.
Yeah.
Jizzazzle.
I love sperm. Hot take. Once when I was younger, I was obsessed with whales. And so I wanted to like make a singing group with my friend. And I went to my mom and was like, we're going to name it after a whale. We're going to be called the Spermies. And she had to be like, I like have a very early memory of being like in grade 3. And she was like, so
that's not a good name.
Maybe not that. It has to do with sex. And like it was just like such a weird L of a conversation. I was like, I was just trying to talk about music and whales. And now you're just like
been brought
what
into
about
this world of
the humpbacks? That's not good either. What about the minkies?
Yeah. Oh, that's cute.
That's cute. Yeah.
Hey, we're
The
the
belugas.
Minkies.
The minkies is great.
Yeah.
Because
Too close
there
to
was
monkeys,
the
though.
monkeys.
The Minkies is good.
Yeah. Wow. If only I just randomly
monkey's
chosen
cover band.
a minky whale. Okay.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
Post.
Peace.